Hello, 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 and welcome to NGB Business News, the greatest business news commentary channel on YouTube, people. I'm happy to be back and with you today. A lot of interesting things have taken place, so you already know we're going to touch on it. So, you know what I'm saying? Make yourself at home. I'm with the Miller Lights today. We've got a lot of interesting topics. We're going to talk about this whole Hunter Biden situation. Somehow it's gotten played down a lot, and we already know that's kind of because the government was kind of hiding it a lot. But basically, essentially, in simple terms, Hunter Biden allegedly somehow received money from, I believe, a Chinese bank, and Biden and the U.S. government has kind of been, working almost as attorneys for him in this way. And as you guys know, Hunter Biden is prone to a lot of trouble, a lot of drug use, a lot of stuff like that normal people would have been thrown in prison with the key, eaten, whatever you want to call it, thrown away into a bush, but he gets away with it every time. So we're going to get into that whole situation. As you guys know, I don't look at the information before I touch on it with you guys, just so we can see and react to it together. We also have something where we're basically saying that Switzerland is essentially beating high inflation, which is a large problem that we're dealing with in the U.S. You guys all know that if you've been at your local grocery store or bought literally anything. If your paycheck, if you haven't received a raise at your job, you're pretty much getting slaughtered out here nowadays because things are just expensive as the U.S. dollar is getting weaker. Now, the U.S. dollar getting weaker goes into the next topic, which will be about Russia and China and how Iran and a few other countries are kind of banding together to make the U.S. dollar weaker. Now, we already know the U.S. dollar is a little bit weaker, like I said, because of our high inflation and everything like that. But with some large powers like Russia, even though they've been beaten down, and China being, I believe, the second largest trading partner in the world or something like that, obviously it's going to have an impact if, they decide to no longer associate or use the US dollar. That could have a dramatic impact on our economy, so we're going to want to look into that for sure. And the next thing we're going to look at is this terrible shooting in Nashville, the Nashville shooting, a terrible shooting. I saw the videos earlier today and some more videos earlier this week. So we're going to kind of touch into that. We've came out and saw that this person is trans. So, a lot of political agenda is getting pushed. Possible trans hate could be, coming out aspiring because of this. So we're going to want to touch on that whole topic because, it really gets down to people are debating. People are wondering, is this a mental health problem? Is this a gun problem? And where we need to implement gun control? Is this a trans problem? A lot of people are blaming trans people. A lot of people are blaming guns, so we're going to kind of get into that. I want to see how you guys feel, so definitely comment below and everything, how you guys feel about that. And I'll let you guys know kind of how I feel about it and everything as we break into the article. So the first thing we've got here is that Comer demands Biden correct his dishonest denial that the family got $1 million from Hunter's China deal. Now, it looks like this was some type of business deal and everything like that. So let's see what's going on with this, people.
Helping you vending.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys.
It's
always an ad.
Here are 10.
Let's bring in House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. Chairman, thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, America wants to know who that fourth unknown person is. Can you add to what we've learned so far? Who is it?
Well, all the bank wire said was Biden. It didn't have a first name. And I've been involved in banking for a long time, and I've never seen a wire that just had one name on it. So
see, that's pretty interesting. That's an interesting point they're making. He's saying off the rip, he's saying as a banker, this seems a little strange to me. So you guys already know if it's a legal deal, you probably won't have much to hide. You'll probably put your first name on it. Like, I don't think any of us ever go to the bank and when we write a check or anything like that, we just use our first name, especially $1 million check. Just that's interesting.
With respect to the wires, this LLC had several bank wires over a decade. Remember, we got a decade's worth of bank records. And like any other bank wire, it would have a name, address, and a date, and then a memo. And it would say what the bank wire was for, but they left them blank on the Bidens. Now, the White House said today that was seed capital for an investment. I don't think that's an accurate statement. We haven't found where anything happened other than this Chinese energy firm that was directly tied to the CCP made direct payments to the Biden family. We haven't seen anything where they took the money and then invested it in any business. We can't find any business.
Congressman, you...
See, that's interesting too. Like, think about it, guys. Like, okay, so like we like to do here with companies, we say, okay, like let's take Google for instance. Something bad happens with Google, like when they came out with Bard AI and it couldn't beat Microsoft. Okay, red flag. Let's say a higher up gets fired for something, multiple red flags. Then that's when we really start to think about a company being on the downfall. One thing of bad news isn't really too much to worry about. When you hear two bad things, it's like, okay. When you hear three, then you know, okay, maybe I want to sell my shares. Maybe I want to, get in at a lower price. Or maybe this company is starting to have some downward trajectory. And what he's saying here does sound a little, strange. If there was a $1 million wire transfer, you would think that it would be very easy to dispel why this transfer happened. Why was Hunter Biden getting this? I don't really understand why people would be giving, Hunter Biden. Unless I'm getting him confused with the one that does, that be in the hotels with the drugs and stuff. But I think that's Hunter Biden. I'm not sure, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong on that and everything like that. But even still, it seems pretty crazy that this would be such a large deal, $1 million, and it wouldn't, there would be no information within the transfer, especially considering your dad's the president. People are going to ask these questions, and the money is from China. If you already know with the type of tense relations that we have with China, with the whole Russian-Ukraine situation, with the whole China possibly, EMPing or destroying technology in Taiwan, with the balloon that was, spying on Americans and everything like that. You would think if you were taking a wire fraud through a Chinese bank, it just doesn't sound like something that would really make sense when your dad is the president. It's just, at this point, I'm sure Biden, he's probably too asleep to really worry about it. But at this point, I'm sure Biden's like, God dang, like, why can't my kids, like, just relax? Like, but hopefully we can learn a little bit more about this.
You alluded to seed money there. That was in a statement from a Hunter Biden spokesperson. This is call for number 4, if we can bring it up. It says, Hunter Biden, a private citizen with every right to pursue his own business endeavors, joined several business partners in seeking a joint venture with a legitimate energy company in China. Hunter received his portion of good faith seed funds, which he shared with his uncle, James Biden and Hallie Biden, and nobody else. You want to bring the man who was the go-between on this money, Rob Walker, before...
Also, this could be one thing that they could try to pull, it was a business deal. It was involving 10, 15 different people. It's not necessarily Biden specifically. I could see them try to, play that game and everything like that, which is fine, which is fine. We're not really attacking Hunter Biden here. We're just calling out, this just seems a little strange, This seems a little strange, and yeah. And I think the real question comes down to, if your country is at odds with another country, is it still fine for you to really do business with that country? You know what I'm saying? Especially if your dad is a politician, especially on top of that, if your dad is the leader of our executive power.
For your committee, what are you hoping to learn from him?
Well, we want to know exactly what the money was for. You heard that statement. We don't find any evidence where they ever took the money and invested it in a company. People always talk about, well, Hunter Biden had legitimate business dealings with China. What were those business dealings?
He said, where were they? He said, where?
To shell companies then funneled back into the Biden family. We don't see any business. And what we've been told from people that were in this circle is that the business was the Bidens were basically influence peddling. They were promising to help China open doors in the United States, help them navigate the bureaucracy to where they could start buying ownership into the American energy companies and buy.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's getting deep, y'all. You guys understand. You guys understand what he's saying. we don't, one thing too, I don't want to do, and I don't want us to do, obviously, these people aren't, large supporters. Why did they do that? Large supporters of Joe Biden. We'll get back to it.
Or what?
Oh my gosh. But obviously, like I was saying, I'll fix this real quick, guys. But as I was saying, oh my gosh, Biden climate change, like, bro, what? Why is it moving? Come on now. No, I'll leave it here. Yeah, but what I was saying is we don't want to be too biased on this. As you guys know, this is Fox News. Obviously, they don't like Biden and everything like that. So we don't want to dive too deep into it. We just want to get into the facts and the nitty gritty and not, have too much of a biased opinion. But it seems like what they're kind of trying to push this on, on the Biden family and the Biden administration is that, this money was really more of a funnel for China to finally be able to enter American markets that they wouldn't have been able to enter. They're saying that's why there wasn't, much names involved or anything like that. That's why he said there's these energy companies that we can't find and everything like that. So these are pretty big accusations, especially considering, the type of state that we're in with our relationship that we have with China right now. Let's see.
What does Bargain Hunt have in store for
these
your
ads?
grocery list? Get in store to find what amazing brands are waiting for you.
All right.
Let's bring in House Oversight
So-
Committee Chairman.
Business deals set up in just a 60-day period after Joe Biden left the vice presidency. This is something that Joe Biden was actively involved in throughout the last year of his vice presidency. We've had several people come in and say that. In fact, even some
See,
of
they're
the
making that
transfers
connection
to that
from
Robinson
Biden
Walker
to
company
China.
happened during 2015 and 2016, a time when Joe Biden was very much vice president of the United States.
And so, Mr. Chairman, you and I were speaking in the green room prior to you coming on here. You suggested that maybe this was Joe Biden thinking that he probably wasn't going to run for office again, the tragedy of his son Beau dying in 2015 still weighing heavy on his heart. Was this the family setting up business for post-vice presidency?
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people have told us that were involved with these early dealings. Remember, most of these dealings ended up bad because the president's son got on a drug problem and, a lot of things changed in his life. But during 2015 and 2016, when Joe Biden decided he wasn't going to seek the presidency, Hillary Clinton was running, I think just about every American thought that Hillary Clinton would be elected president. So at Joe Biden's age, the chances of him ever returning to public office were about zero. So he was doing what a lot of people would do. They were setting up their business to where they could
that
capitalize
makes
on the
sense.
private
That's
sector.
legitimate.
Now, the problem is Joe Biden became president and he's not been truthful with the American people. He said, well, he didn't have any knowledge of any of this. Why don't they come clean about what they were doing? And, the Biden Center for Diplomacy, we have a lot of questions about that. That was, primarily funded with money coming from China. There's just a...
Because, guys, think about it, too. If you're running for, let's say Joe's trying to run for president next year, or he's trying to get his approval rating up right now, receiving money from China when China was like one of our number one enemies, it's not going to be a good look. But if you're just some, ex-president living far off, then maybe people won't care.
A lot of money that's gone from China to the Biden family in various different interests and through various different LLCs. That's what our investigation is about. These bank records on Rob Walker, this is the first of at least a dozen trails of money that we're tracing
That's a
that
lot.
went from China to the Biden family.
Okay, so Hunter Biden's legal team, as you well know, has dismissed this memo from your committee saying, here we go again, as Rep. Comer takes something old and tries to make it new by wrapping it in a wild and baseless right-wing conspiracy, they're calling it. What is your response to their legal team?
Well, they've continuously changed their story. Just a few months ago when I announced the investigation after the House flipped, they said there was nothing to the laptop, that it was complete Russian disinformation. So they've denied the existence of these payments directly to the Biden family all the way until the day that we actually produce bank records. I don't think the White House ever thought that I would get my hands on those bank records. And I've got some bad news.
He's like the Biden family's worst enemy. They like, James Comer.
This influence peddling scheme for several months now. I've been chairman of this committee for 2 months, had subpoena authority for 2 months, and now you're going to start seeing information come in, and I don't think it's going to be very good for the Bidens. I don't think they've been truthful about this from the very beginning, and they're trying to backpedal now, and I just don't think it's going to work.
So that begs the big question, and my colleague Bill Hemmer alluded to this with you when you were on with him earlier this week. He said you've been looking into this for an awfully long time, and so far there's no concrete evidence of wrongdoing. Do you think that will change as the investigation progresses?
I've been chairman of this committee for 2 months. I know I saw somebody on Fox said, well, they've been investigating Joe Biden for 5 years. Republicans have only been in charge of the House of Representatives for 2 months. So I've had subpoena power for 2 months. We've already got more information in than I think anyone that conducted an investigation of Biden before has.
Not a good look for the Biden family.
Authority. So they didn't have the ability to get bank records. They've talked to people, they've talked to whistleblowers, but they never had actual evidence. We're getting evidence in, and the president's story does not add up. And from what people tell us, there were other ways that they were doing things for Joe Biden. Every single person that we've spoken with that was involved with the Biden family influence peddling has said Joe Biden was very involved in the family business.
Real quick, a follow-up. Maybe this is a silly question, but when it comes to that fourth unknown Biden family,
it's really coming on with Joe.
I mean, have you asked the bank that you subpoenaed for those records? Is it possible that that went through without a full name on it? I don't think I would be able to get that done. I mean, don't you need to?
I was wondering that too. Like, how did this really get through without like I can't just go into like put in Bowens on like a check and they'd be like, all right, that's enough. Just last name only. That is weird.
Two names on the record?
Maybe it's a Chinese bank thing. I don't know, but like it is weird.
Have you asked the bank?
We're looking into that as we speak. We're examining, my staff right now examining the bank violations, which is a separate thing that Treasury has been blocking us, that we now have access to. And that's the difference, another difference in this investigation. We have evidence that will allow us to get more evidence. So we have proof now, because one of the things that the Biden lawyers were trying to do to prevent us from having access to these bank records, we're saying, well, this is just a goose chase. They're just fishing. There's no legitimate purpose for this investigation. There's a money trail from China to the Bidens, and that's going to allow us to get more bank records.
All right. Well, we will see what else develops throughout.
Not looking good for the Bidens. Gotta say, it's definitely not looking too hot for the Bidens. So I want to know what you guys think about this and everything. Do you guys, obviously, this Fox News does not like Biden. So, if we were to be on another news source, they would definitely say different things and everything like that. But let's just get down into the facts. And the facts is that the Biden family did receive $1 million. Somehow there wasn't a last name that had to be, there was only a last name that, was needed for this check to clear. They can't find the energy industries that this money is necessarily going towards. And there is apparently a history of lots of, they said dozens of transactions between the Biden family and Chinese, banks and businesses and things of that nature, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that, I don't want there to become this whole narrative that, Chinese people are like our enemy or that they're evil or anything. Obviously, if you think about it from a national standpoint, yes, China is our enemy. They're our rival in a way, you could say. But you know what I'm saying? In the end, Chinese people over in China, well, yeah, obviously that's where Chinese people come. They're people just like us. And a lot of times they don't have a lot of control in the things that their government do. The same way that we don't have a lot of control in the things that our government does. So I don't want it to be this type of narrative where it's like, oh, well, if you're doing business in China, you must be doing something wrong. I think that would be a kind of ignorant place to have. But I can say that with China being such our rival and Joe Biden being the leader of our executive power, it's not a good look at all. Especially seeing this money is going to Hunter Biden, who correct me if I'm wrong, is the guy who I saw, you know, with like strippers and like, you know what I'm saying, like I saw a video of him in a hotel room. I was like, what is this? Like, I was like, is this Girls Gone Wild? Like, what is this? So why anybody would want to be funding him money anyways, that's a red flag in itself. So I want to know where you guys are. Do you guys feel like they're just kind of using this to kind of, you know, get Biden's rating down and help out the Republicans? But as the presidency is coming up and, you know, he's just doing business in China, which is fine. Or do you guys think that the Biden administration is hiding a lot? It seems strange that they're not very able to expel or, you know, very lucidly present why these funds were, you know, provided to the family and everything like that. You know, it's kind of like why are they hiding in the shadows? If you're hiding, then you must have something to hide type of thing. So let me know what you guys think about that and everything. We're definitely going to get into the next topic, but if you enjoy this, definitely let me know how you feel about it. Like, comment, subscribe, and everything like that to help the channel grow for sure. And I'm going to grab a little bit of water before we get into our next topic, people. Large glass of water. Yep. Okay, so as we all know, a large problem that we've been dealing with during this recession in the United States is obviously the high levels of inflation that we've had. You know what I'm saying? Like I said before, every time you go to your grocery store, the gas station, you can already tell, man, my $20, my $10 ain't stretching as far. But it seems that Switzerland has been able to beat high inflation. As you know, a lot of countries are dealing with high inflation as a result of the post, C-19 era that we're in and everything like this. But the small European nation, like it says here, of Switzerland beat high inflation. And it says here's how. So this will be really interesting for us to look into, like, how they did it. Is this possibly a model that the United States could use? Are there possibly some tips, some things that we could learn, from how Switzerland is operating? Obviously, they're very different. Switzerland is very small. The U.S. is very big, so there are a lot of differences. So obviously, some of the methods that they use just won't work, with the large scale that we are at in the United States. But hopefully there's something that we can get out of this. I thought it would be very interesting to take a look at. I thought we could learn something. So, I wanted to show you guys it. Let's see here. I'll make myself a little bit bigger so y'all can see how amazing I look. Here we go. So it says the small European nation of Switzerland beat sky-high inflation. Here is how. And here's a video right here. Let's see. I'm actually going to make a quick little switcheroo. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. I'm going to do this. All right. And of course, there's an ad with Michael B. Jordan.
Me too.
Experience more.
Shout out to Michael B. Jordan, though. Great guy. Have you guys, let me know too in the comments, have you guys seen Creed 3? I haven't seen it yet. I've seen 1 and 2.
Rising costs and higher interest rates. It's hard to talk about the economy these days without thinking of one word: inflation. But as many countries across the globe battle sky-high inflation, here in Switzerland, a small mountainous nation in Western Europe, the rise in prices has been...
Do y'all like that accent? You know, do y'all like the accent? I like the accent. Did they get like a Swedish person from CNBC to speak on Sweden? Or I mean, not Sweden, Switzerland. Excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. Interesting.
Been far less dramatic. Have you felt the effects of price rises and inflation over the past year?
Not that much, to be honest.
It's been all right.
Most of the things is okay.
Wow, that is very different from the United States, I can tell you that.
I think so.
Inflation in Switzerland hit a 29-year high of 3.5% in 2022. While still high by Swiss standards, it is well below the double-digit inflation rates in other advanced economies like the US, UK, and Eurozone.
Wow.
So, what is it about the Swiss economy that means it's largely avoided rampant inflation? And what can other countries learn from it? There are multiple parts to Switzerland's inflationary story. For starters, prices in the country are already beginning from a high base. Switzerland is one of the world's wealthiest countries, with a GDP per capita outstripping that of other major economies like the US, Japan, and Germany. It is also home to some of the richest citizens in the world, with an average wealth of nearly 700.
Yeah, I mean, we already know. If you've watched any movies, you guys already know what's up with the Swiss bank accounts. Not only is the whole country pretty much, you know, doing very well. I wouldn't say wealthy, but doing very well. This is also where people all around the world looking to protect their money take their money. The Swiss banks are pretty much the most protected banks that there are. Not even pretty much, they are the most protected banks that they are. I actually did a video a few months ago where pharmaceutical families were using Swiss banks to you know what I'm saying, hide their money and everything like that while they were being sued in the United States. And we learned that a large reason why a lot of people like to put their money in Swiss banks is the Swiss government has laws and will actually defend against another country. So let's say you do something illegal with your money in the United States and you put it in a Swiss bank account. The US will come in, go to the US banks and they'll say, hey, they're arrested for these charges, give us the money. And they'll just give the money. The Swiss be like, well, you know, there's a barrier here. Here's your money. There's the barrier. Here's the government, you know, and the government has to work very, very hard to gain access to Swiss bank accounts. Very, very hard. The Swiss bank account, excuse me. The Swiss bank accounts are one of the only bank accounts that will actually kind of fight in defense of your favor. And that's why they're so well paid.
$100,000 per adult, and a steep cost of living to match.
Those are nice.
In
those are
2022,
nice houses.
the Swiss cities of Zurich and Geneva held steady among the world's 10 most expensive cities, even as inflation pushed up living costs in other pricey
Like a land of
places
rich
like
people.
Singapore, New York, and Tel Aviv. Tobias Stroman is a professor of modern and economic history at the University of Zurich.
That's who we need to
It's
hear from.
because people are on average quite rich. The share of food in the overall budget of household is not as big as maybe in other countries. We also have inequality, of course, but from an international perspective, we have, I think, a very well-functioning social policy.
As a result, Swiss citizens are generally less impacted by price hikes because they tend to spend a lower proportion of their income on essentials versus discretionary items such as vacations and hobbies, which they can scale back when prices go up. Another reason for Switzerland's relative...
That's a very, very important point that they make, and one of those distinctions that I was talking about between the U.S. and Switzerland. In the United States, we're made up a majority of, lower and middle class people, where in Switzerland, it seems like a majority of people are almost upper class when compared to the rest of the world and everything like that. In the US, a lot of people are going to be spending their money less on, things like vacations, jewelry, things that you really don't need. And they're going to end up buying things like toilet paper, medicines that you may need, food, chicken, eggs, consumer staples and everything like that. Whereas Switzerland, people are more focused on consumer, like discretionary spending, essentially money that you don't need to spend, but you'll spend anyway. And they focus less on, staples, things that you need. So that's really a big dynamic. And that's kind of seems to be why they're able to really shield themselves from inflation. That's just a point to make. That's not something the U.S. will be able to capitalize on, though, because we're not built like that. Our nation just economically and social economically just is not built for that type of model.
Price stability stems from the strong Swiss franc. The country's currency has also steadily strengthened, rising in value against the euro to reach parity in 2022. And while the US dollar strengthened against many major currencies in 2022, the Swiss franc held steady amid volatility in Europe. That's largely due to its status as a safe haven currency or defensive asset. The Swiss franc is heavily backed by large reserves of gold, bonds, and financial assets, which help the Swiss National Bank ensure the country's stability during times of volatility.
It's been a safe haven currency in times of crisis, and it actually started about 100 years ago after World War I. And of course, with the war and all that and COVID, the Swiss franc again was in much demand.
The strength of its currency is also beneficial for its economy, which is heavily dependent on international trade. In 2020, Switzerland imported around $300 billion worth of goods and services, the majority of which come from neighbouring EU countries. A stronger Swiss franc, therefore, provides an effective discount on those imports. In the same year, Switzerland exported a near equal amount.
As you guys know, essentially what they're saying here is just like with the United States dollar and how it's able to stretch. Apparently so is a Swiss franc, because it not only normally grows in value, but it actually seems to be able to hold its value very well. And like I said, with the United States, you know, it's a little bit different because like they says, they're bringing a lot of imported goods in where the U.S. can actually produce a lot of that stuff ourselves and everything like that. It basically means that countries, when they bring their stuff in, the Swiss franc is pretty much just much stronger in general. And since it's already strengthened by that and they're already dealing with so much international stuff, if other countries are being hurt and everything like that, Swiss can still buy things from them, but they can just buy it from a cheaper price. So if there's war going on all outside of, you know, Switzerland and everything like that, and people are, you know, having to sell things at, you know, cheaper prices than they normally would, it would seem, the Swiss aren't really as affected by that. One, because they're so small. Two, because all of their people are wealthy and they don't buy consumer staples. So they're not going to spend an absorbent amount on things like toilet paper because they just don't have to, you know what I'm saying, and everything like that. So that kind of the strength of the Swiss dollar does kind of make a lot of sense why they would be, you know, able to beat inflation in the same type of way that a lot of rich people still in the United States. I had a video on it a little bit ago. They were still going on trips. They were still, you know, doing everything. They were actually buying more luxury goods, you know what I'm saying, in the recession than they were buying before the recession, which normally people would think that's weird. They'd be like, well, even if you are rich, I would expect you to cut back a little because, you know what I'm saying, because, you know, you're still in a recession. But the thing is they're not hit as hard by inflation in general, you know, because think about it. Inflation, like we said, is more going to have to deal with these consumer staples, things like diamond rings. Normal people aren't buying them anyway, so it's not fluctuating as much in the market.
But those tended to be higher value goods and services, such as watches and pharmaceuticals, which are less susceptible to price fluctuations than low margin, mass-produced commodities. Switzerland is also less exposed to some volatile external factors that pushed prices higher in 2022, such as soaring oil and gas prices caused by Russia's war in Ukraine. Home to around 1,500 lakes and numerous rivers, hydropower plays a key role in Switzerland's energy production. Hydroelectricity accounts for more than a tenth of Switzerland's energy consumption, making the country less reliant on oil and gas imports than some of its European neighbours.
With the whole Russian,
Swiss energy suppliers
war,
are also largely publicly owned,
oil being
which
so
means
expensive.
they're less exposed to extreme market volatility through financial safety nets, but are also subject to more strict pricing regulation.
In Switzerland, we have a lot of state control of prices, which is kind of strange because you think of Switzerland as a very liberal country, but in the crucial areas like energy and rent, you have a lot of public controls. That means that the inflation rate is stretched over time. It doesn't mean that there is no inflation at all, but you can avoid that you have a certain short-term effect.
At the end of 2022, energy prices in Switzerland rose at a rate of 16.2%, below the levels faced by major peers like Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, and Italy. Switzerland's energy regulator now expects prices to rise by a further 27% in 2023, with the typical annual household bill topping 1,215 Swiss francs. Jean-Claude Huber is the manager of Hotel Pisbuin Cloisters in the east of Switzerland. He said standardization of long-term energy contracts have sheltered businesses like his from rising costs in 2023.
This year I'm not worried because the contract is till the end of the year. Afterwards it will go up by multiple 5 probably, so that's really a big increase. But okay, we will have to manage that.
The four-star hotel's
they don't
dynamic
seem too
pricing
worried.
structure also means that Huber has been able to
that's
pass on price hikes of around 5 to 10% to the consumer without hurting demand.
We can absorb it because we can play with the rates much more than if you have fixed rates all the time, and that helps us a lot. If you take
And the reason why they're able to adjust these rates and the people don't go crazy is because they have money. So they see that 5% increase and they're like, okay, we'll do it. And that allows the businesses to kind of, meet their demand, which, technically lowers inflation. Because think, if the materials cost a lot, normally the businesses are hurt because the consumer won't pay what the materials are worth. Then the businesses fail, which causes a recession. And when the businesses fail, there's less businesses selling these goods. So then the goods cost more. But in this, it's like, okay, the business has to pay more. The customer pays more. There's that equilibrium, and, that causes way less adjustment in the market.
Take 2 or 3 star hotels, they will have much more problems because these people are very much more sensitive on the costs.
Alongside energy, Switzerland also has stringent controls around the price of goods and services, making it less susceptible to inflation-led price fluctuations. Of the core products used to measure inflation in the Eurozone, including food, housing and transport, almost 1/3 are subject to price regulation in Switzerland, more than any other European country. High tariffs on certain agricultural imports also mean that domestically produced foods, such as milk and cheese, are preferentially priced and less impacted by movements in global food markets.
We try to buy as much as possible Swiss, but even regional, which really means bread, milk products and so on, to buy them locally. Long term, you want to have a local industry working, functioning, and you need farmers, so it's important that they can sell their products.
In December of 2022, Swiss food prices rose at an annualized rate of 4%. That compares with 11.9% in the US, 16.9% in the UK, and 19.8% in Germany.
At the restaurant, the food costs,
I wish we could get some of that over here.
In increasing the cost of the meals, but we're cautious also because you shouldn't exaggerate.
All of that doesn't mean Swiss consumers have been totally immune to recent price hikes, however. In fact, some say they're feeling the pinch more than ever. So where have you felt it most?
Energy prices, electricity.
Some groceries have gotten more expensive.
As usually, it's the poor people or the low wages that suffer from it, and they really have a problem.
Switzerland's central bank said it now expects inflation to dip to an average of 2.4% in 2023, before falling to 1.8% in 2024.
Even if we have kind of a recessionary scenario, people are still coming in, and that of course stabilizes demand. And I expect the same thing for this year, 2023, and probably also for 2024.
What, if anything, do you think other countries can learn from the Swiss model?
Exchange rate policy is very difficult to imitate because we have the euro, and the euro has to consider all countries, and I think for some countries an appreciation would be maybe good for import prices but really bad for export. This question about who owns energy production, maybe it's a good idea to think about to renationalize at least part of it, to be more resilient and to have a long-term owner who really looks for the consumer. In other places in Europe there was a clear shift to privatization, and in the medium short term that was a very good idea, but it's not very resilient, and they're haunted by these decisions now. And at the time many people said the Swiss are too conservative, but I'd say in retrospect it was a very good decision.
A lot of very, very good points that he made there. First, like he was saying, a lot of people said the Swiss were too conservative, but look at me. They said, look at me now, you know what I'm saying, and everything like that. He also talked about how in a lot of, Western and other European countries, energy is actually, more privatized, whereas, in Switzerland, it's more based on the government is more in control of it, which, like he said, it being privatized could have good short to midterm, benefits as, people will be more willing to invest their own money into it. They can make their own decisions between also people competing against each other, can cause a rise, and that competitiveness can bring forth innovation, which can be really good. But when you have long term and you have a lot of, unforeseen factors and everything like that, sometimes you do kind of want to have that one person, that head, that president that can just say, all right, here's what we need to do as a collective. Think about it like that. As is Switzerland, when they want to, let's say, shut down or slow energy production, they can shut it down with all the energy in Switzerland. If the U.S. wants to do that, think they may have to go to 1,000 different countries. Some are companies. Some are going to be for it. Some are not going to be for it, and everything like that. And they also made the point that so that's one thing that would be helpful to us. And that really is the only thing that seems like would be helpful to us that we could actually do. One, because we're not, person by person as wealthy as the Swiss, and everything like that. That's not going to happen. We're not all of a sudden going to be able to spend money on consumer discretionary in the same type of way that they are. That's just not going to happen. So we're not going to be able to do that. So, a lot of really interesting stuff that it says here. It's pretty interesting. It was good to see Switzerland as a beautiful country and everything that they're dealing with that. There wasn't as much that I really thought we were going to be able to learn as far as how we could possibly help the U.S. and everything like that. Because it seems like with the Swiss franc, like you said, it being backed kind of by the euro, that's something that we don't deal with. Our economics and social economics are completely different. And like he said, the way that we handle certain sectors, it being government, public or private, you could say, and everything like that is just different. We're very different countries. So let me know what you guys think about this. I think it was a very interesting video. If there's anything I got wrong, definitely let me know. This was really deep into the economics for me. So I was trying to kind of learn a little bit, as we go. So if there's any mistakes or anything that I made, definitely correct me, because I'm here to learn just like you guys, and everything like that. So hey, I hope you guys all have a great day and everything like that. We're going to go ahead and get into the next topic, guys. Well, let's have a look here. Now, this next topic that we have here actually kind of goes off of what we just talked about today with how we could fight our inflation, because inflation obviously means that the US dollar is weakening. That's what it is. You go and you have $20, now you can't buy a full grocery basket worth of stuff, Now you might just get a Pop-Tart the way the groceries was looking when I was over there yesterday. You feel me? But it says the dollar is our superpower and Russia and China are threatening it. Now, today I saw a bunch of not necessarily articles. It was more just like straight social media. And I couldn't see too many articles that came off of that. But it seemed like countries like Iran, obviously Russia and China are kind of getting together, and they're saying, hey, we're going to kind of step away from the US dollar in a way to weaken it, which, as we know, with large powerhouses like China and Russia, with China being like the number 2 biggest trading partner in the world, that would be pretty detrimental to the US economy, should certain nations decide to pull away, even if they are nations that we have, you could say, conflict with and everything like that. So let me pull up this article here. Wow, that was weird. What did my voice do? Here? But let me pull up this article here, and let's see what's going on with this situation. Now, this is from the Washington Post. It says the dollar is our superpower, and Russia and China are threatening it. Now it says, obviously, as we know, maybe it was last week where there was a summit between Putin and Jinping. I was actually going to make a video about them. They were scheming, y'all. They were scheming. They were shaking hands. They were over there in the corner sniggling. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Coach Greg for that. They were sniggling, but it looked like they had a lot of stuff in the works. They were over there looking like best friends. You know what I'm saying? I'm surprised he didn't bring his Jinping didn't bring his sleeping bag over, and you know what I'm saying, they just stay up and play some Call of Duty all night or something like that, because they look like they were the best of friends, which isn't too good for the American government or the American people. Let's keep it a stack. Now, let's get into this and kind of see what's going on with that whole situation. Now, it says the most interesting outcome of the 3-day summit between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping got limited media attention. Describing their talks, Putin said, "Oh, excuse me. We are in favor of using the Chinese yuan for settlements between Russia and the countries of Asia, African, and Latin America." Going away from the United States dollar, that's gonna hurt, y'all. That's gonna hurt. So the world's second largest economy and its largest energy exporter are actively trying to dent the dollar's dominance as the anchor of the international financial system. Will they succeed? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But, I mean, what did we really expect, though? You know, we've been trading with all types of South Pacific, nations and everything like that. We've been trying to cut China out the deals. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Russia is self-explanatory. We're giving billions on billions of dollars to Ukraine while not feeding our own people. You know what I'm saying? And everything like that. That's not me saying let's not give money to Ukraine. I'm just saying we're giving billions of dollars to Ukraine while, you know what I'm saying, I could probably, drive relatively, I could probably run and find me a homeless person, Now, the dollar is America's superpower. It gives Washington unrivaled economic and political muscle. And the people, too. You know what I'm saying? You go to Taiwan, your American dollar is stretch. People, it's stretch. Now, you're making $50,000 a year in America. You rich in a lot of places, guys. Now, it says the United States can slap sanctions on countries unilaterally, freezing them out of large parts of the world economy. And when Washington spends freely, it can be certain that its debt, usually in the form of treasury bills, will be bought up by the rest of the world. Why? Because it's the United States dollar. What is it? America. You know what I'm saying? Gotta get some cold water. Drink your water, people. Let me go back for another one. It's tasty. Now it says sanctions imposed on Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, combined with Washington's increasingly confrontational approach to China, have created a perfect storm in which both Russia and China are accelerating efforts to diversify away from the dollar. Their central banks are keeping yet less of their reserves in dollars, and most trade between them is being settled in yuan and won. They are also, as Putin noted, making efforts to get other countries to follow suit. This could be really bad. This could be really bad. Now, it says the Biden administration has handled economic war against Russia extremely effectively by building a coalition in support of Ukraine that includes almost all of the world's advanced economies. That makes it hard to escape from the dollar in other highly valued stable currencies such as the euro, the pound, or the Canadian dollar, because those countries are also countering Russia. Yeah, it's going to be kind of hard, too, for them to, really get this whole thing going, because most countries don't like Russia. Let's keep it a stack. Like, there's China and Russia do have allies, but they seem to have a lot less than NATO, and everything like that. So it's going to be one of those types of things where if somebody's doing trade with, let's say, these European nations or the United States, and they say, oh, you know what, we don't want to use the euro, we don't want to use the dollar anymore. a lot of them would be real scared to do that because then the U.S. will be less likely to trade for them. And even though the U.S. dollar is getting weaker, it is still the strong U.S. dollar. So unless you really have some true incentive to go away, you're going to do whatever is going to be best for you business-wise. And right now, that is the U.S. dollar. But should a big superpower like China really get rid of its reserves of US dollars and really be able to get enough people to switch over to that side, you know what I'm saying, then, that could really become an issue, especially if Russia is able to somehow get out of this war, start establishing themselves again, then Russia and China together can really be a formidable force. Right now, with Russia being in a whole war, I don't know how much other countries will really think about that. But in the end, it all comes about power, and the power from this type of situation all comes from the strength of that currency. So if countries start seeing, okay, there's a flip, the US dollar's value is going down while the yuan is rising. The yuan could still be worth less than the US dollars because they know, hey, if it keeps going in this trajectory and we fill up our storage our banks, our treasuries with yuans, eventually they'll be worth more. And that's really where the fear comes in. Now it says what really may have been a sharper turning point for the dollar's role was President Donald Trump's decision in May 2018 to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal and impose sanctions. The European Union, strenuously opposed to this move, watched as the dollar's dominance meant that Iran was immediately excluded from much of the world economy, including its trading partners in Europe. Jean-Claude Juncker, then president of the European Commission, proposed enhancing the euro's role internationally to shield the continent from unselfish unilateralism. The commission outlined a path to achieve this goal. Now, it says that hasn't happened. There remain too many fundamental doubts about the future of the euro itself. Yeah, trading the future, you guys know I'm a commodities trader. Trading the euro is like, the euro is like one of the better ones, obviously. Then, the dollar is pretty stable. But, trying to trade like, I'm saying like the Japanese currency or the Australian currency, like, man, those charts are screwed up. And think if you're investing in something, you want to invest in something that's not going to be very volatile. And that's why people love the US dollar. But if the US dollar becomes more volatile than something like the yuan, even I may start, trading it a little bit, throwing some of my US dollars in there to trade. You know what I'm saying? Now, a globalized economy needs a single currency for ease and efficiency. The dollar is stable. You can buy and sell it anytime, and it is governed largely by market and not a government's whims. Excuse me, guys. That's why China's efforts to expand the yuan's role internationally have not worked. Ironically, if Xi wanted to cause the greatest pain to the United States, he would liberalize his financial sector and make it a true competitor to the dollar. But that would take him into the direction of markets and openness that are opposite of his own domestic goals. If you guys don't know, kind of what they're saying there is what's really hurting China from being able to do this is that they've really thrived by being a independent nation. When I say an independent nation, they really try not to trade too much outside of their country. They run their government very sanctioned. It's hard for people to get inside. Basically, they essentially cut themselves off from the rest of the world. And when you're a trading partner, you can't really do that. You can't cut yourself off from trade from the rest of the world and then expect the rest of the world to want to use your currency. The United States is a great currency and the dollar is a great currency because what's happening? You can easily see what's going on with the United States government. We're very clear in what's going on with our government for the most part. You know what I'm saying? People are taking the US dollar, they're taking it to South America, they're taking it to Asian countries, they're taking it to European countries, they're taking it to Africa, looking to spend it and everything like that. And a lot of people in these other countries, they're looking to take it. You know what I'm saying? They're looking to take it. The Chinese yuan, though, not as much. But that's it's kind of like they're contradicting themselves in a way, because in the manner for them to actually weaken the US dollar, they have to open up themselves to the rest of the world, which is something that they're not very accustomed to doing and don't really seem like that they want to do, like it says, for their own domestic or in-house goals. Now, it says, all that said, Washington's weaponizing of the dollar over the past decade has led many important countries to search for ways to make sure they do not become the next Russia. Maybe don't invade Ukraine. How about Why do I feel so smug? Like, I need a wine or something. I can't be smug, with this beer. Like, that smug laugh, But yeah. It says the share of dollars in central bank reserves has dropped from nearly 70% 20 years ago to less than 60% today and falling steadily. The Europeans and the Chinese are trying to build international payment systems outside of the dollar-dominated SWIFT system. Saudi Arabia has flirted with the idea of pricing its oil in yuan. That would be interesting. Oil is a large market, with Saudi Arabia being I think Saudi Arabia is like the number one. Is it number one? They're like top three at least. If you guys know that, please drop that in the comments. I appreciate ya. Now it says India is settling most of its oil purchases from Russia in non-dollar currencies. That's not good. Digital currencies, which are being explored by most nations, may be another alternative, which that's not good for really any paper currency, of course, but definitely not good for the dollar either. In fact, China's central bank has created one, which we've actually talked about on this channel a lot, as China wanted to kind of have their own Bitcoin. So what they did was they essentially either taxed people making Bitcoin in China too much, or I think eventually they basically just said, y'all can't do this. And then all of those people essentially migrated to the United States. That video is somewhere deep in my YouTube channel. Yeah, if you guys want to check it out, I can post it for you guys, or just reach out and I'll post a link for you guys for sure. Now it says all of these alternatives add cost, but the past few years have taught us that nations are increasingly willing to pay a price for achieving political goals. We keep searching for a single replacement for the dollar, and there will not be one. But could the currency suffer weakness by 1,000 cuts? That seems like a more likely scenario. The author and investor Ruchir Sharma, hopefully I said that right. You guys know I like to try the names. So right now, for the first time in my memory, we have an international financial crisis in which the dollar has been weakening rather than strengthening. You would think, though, you would think with these European powers going to war and everything like that, there being so much instability in Europe, you would think that, us getting to send weapons and everything all the way across the world, you would think that the dollar would be strengthening. And you guys know during war times, normally countries that sell weapons make a lot of money. But what are we doing? We're losing a lot of money, people. We're losing a lot of money, and this isn't good for us at all. We're already in inflation. This is just going to inflate us even more. Especially if Russia can somehow get out of this war and China gets a stick out of their butt and decides to, branch out into the rest of the world. This is going to be really bad for us. It's also going to be really bad for the passport bros. The passport bros, all the guys who think that like American women like suck. And so they go out and, they go to like South America and these Asian countries and search for love. It's going to be bad for them because the dollar is going to be weaker. So whereas they could go out there and take a girl out on a date for $6, now it's going to cost what it would cost over here. So you might as well just stay over here, my guy. But I hope this doesn't happen, because if it does, I might have to take a flight. I'm just playing. Or am I? You know what I'm saying? Now, it says, if it is, Americans should worry. I wrote last week about the bad geopolitical habits Washington has developed because of its unrivaled unpolar status. That attitude is even more true economically. America's politicians have gotten used to spending seemingly without any concerns about deficits. Somebody had to say it. They just be spending. Oh, Ukraine, you need money here. Single moms, You need money here. You know what I'm saying? Taiwan, we still owe them guns. Bro, we just be taking in and expelling out cash because we know at no point are we really going to have to pay any of these countries this money back because bro, they're going to keep trading with us regardless. Why? Because they can't afford to stop trading with us. Why? Because we're one of the biggest trading partners in the world. Hey, you can start. Hey, you say, hey, you know, we could pay our debt back. But if we pay our debt back, you guys aren't going to be able to have eggs in the morning. You know what I'm saying? You like those microwaves, those TVs that were coming over there? TVs isn't a good one because those probably come from somewhere else. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But now it says Americans, politicians, they've gotten used to spending money. Public debt has risen almost fivefold from roughly $6.5 trillion 20 years ago to $31 trillion today. Oh my, The Fed has solved a series of financial crashes by massively expanding its balance sheet 12-fold from around 730 billion 20 years ago to about 8.7 trillion today, or 20 years ago. All of this only works because of the dollar's unique status. If that wanes, America will be facing a reckoning like none other before. This is actually quite scary, guys. This is very scary. This is really something for us to think about, you know, really something for Americans to think about. And it's really time for us to start rallying our troops. We really need to start getting with the euro or something. We need to start getting with the euro because if China can influence enough countries to really stop using the US dollar, and like I said, Russia gets out of this war and, you know, they kind of get their economy back together. I don't think this will be anytime soon, but if this was to, you know, happen, yeah, the US dollar will be very weak, and that will be very bad, and the recession that we're already in will get even worse. And, you know, it could possibly even mean economic collapse for the United States because a lot of the reason why we're able to make these deals, a lot of these transactions and everything like that in the first place is simply because the United dollar is so unique and it's so strong. So I want to know what you guys think about that and everything like that. I think we're actually going to call it a day on this one. I think we're going to touch on the whole Nashville shooter and everything like that. Tomorrow, we're going to break down what was their life like. Why did they do it? They're a terrible person. We're also going to get into the politics of it too. Is this a gun control issue? Is this a trans issue? Is this a mental health issue? How do we fix the problem? I'm going to talk about how I think we could possibly help fix this problem with school shootings and everything like that. I want to hear what you guys have to think about that. And if you guys, of course, like all these videos and stuff that we're doing, these live streams, we pop in about 8, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to get a little bit better about popping in directly at 8, you know what I'm saying? But we working on it. But I hope you guys all had a great time. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and everything like that. I hope you guys all have a great day and be blessed.